Hello, everyone. This is Adil, and I welcome you all to this live weekly webinar for tonight, the 18th of Feb, 8 p.m. Sydney time. So, wherever you are, if you're watching it live, please let us know, leave us a comment, and give us a high five, a hello, anything that you like. Just let us know that you are here. And if you have any questions, I'm sure you would be excited, like most of the other people as well, with the cash rate news which has come through today. And it should be a lot relaxing and a big sigh of relief for a lot of people who were through the cost of living pressures and high mortgages and even high cost of doing business. So we'll be talking about the cost of living pressures as how they will be relieved with this interest rate decision that came today. The cash rate has gone down by 25 basis points, as confirmed by the RBA chief Michelle Bullock. And we will also delve into what are the different ways as to how you can create wealth in real estate in 2025. So that's our topic for today. And if you are watching us later on, if you're watching the recording, please let us know as well. And if you have any questions, any feedback, feel free to share it in the comments, because that is why we do these sessions and that's why I want to hear from you. So we would love to hear from you. And before we start, just quickly sharing our today's topic, like how can someone make money in real estate in 2025. There are different ways of doing it, like buy and hold strategy, or buying a piece of land and building on top of it, or buying something and then just doing a subdivision or adding a granny flat. So we will go through all of these different things that you may have heard or you may be interested in, but you're really not sure what works for you and what will really be helpful in your scenario. So we'll go through them. And if you want to discuss your personal situation, if you want to have a confidential chat directly with myself, the QR code is right here. Feel free to book in a time with myself, and I would love to see you on the other side. For now, we will delve into, before we go further, actually, we'll be talking about a quick disclaimer. So again, any information that we share today is purely generic in nature and does not take into account your personal or specific situation. We are not providing any kind of financial, legal, or tax advice, neither any insurance advice. And also, please make sure that you seek your independent professional advice before you decide to act on any information that gets shared or discussed today. So after that disclaimer, good evening to you as well. We are looking forward to tonight's topic as well. I'm really keen and interested into that one. So thanks for that comment over there. And let's keep rolling. Now, I want to talk a little bit about cash rate decision and what that can do to a lot of people, because yes, the cash rate was sitting at 4.35, the all-time high of the last 12 years or so, and from that high it has now come down by 25 basis points today. But what that essentially means for you now, one thing I want to caution everyone, as much as we are happy, as much as we are enjoying this reduction in cash rate, I want to have a word of caution here today, and I did a video on that earlier today as well, just re-emphasizing on that. It's really important for people to understand the cash rate went really fast. It increased really quickly in 2022 and 2023 because the idea was to combat inflation. And whether it's the right metric of doing that or not the right metric, that's a different discussion, that's a different debate. But essentially, RBA used the cash rate as a tool where they were actually trying to push the inflation down. They were trying to reduce the spending in the economy. And now they believe that, as per the latest inflation figures of around 2.4%, that the inflation has fallen between 2 to 3% target range. And that's why, for them, they have actually now started to reduce the cash rate because they want people to become more active in the economy. Now, the message I want to convey here is, if you are a property buyer specifically, and if you were waiting to buy a property after the interest rates go down, be very cautious. Don't just assume that interest rates will start going down in every meeting the way they were actually going up a couple of years ago or 18 months ago, because they will not go down the same way, because the economy currently is not that stable. It's not that powerful that the interest rates just keep going down. So the economy is in a precarious situation. The spending is still a bit constrained for people. So my understanding is that the RBI's decision today for reducing the cash rate will should look like a cautious one moving forward. What I mean by that is that in the next 3 months, in the next 6 months, I don't expect more than one or two rate reductions after today. So don't just assume that in the next meeting, which is scheduled for 1st of April, I don't think that RPA will be looking to cut the rate again. Well, it all depends on the inflation data at that point of time. They may decide to cut it again. No one can predict that. But don't just assume that the rates will keep going down every second month and you can just go and buy anything, because guess what? As soon as the rate goes down, the borrowing capacity goes up. You can borrow more money, you can lend more money for your business, or for uh, purchasing a car, or for purchasing a boat, or for purchasing a property. You can just lend more money. So don't fall in that trap of thinking that, oh, I can just borrow more, and it will be easier to keep borrowing more moving forward, and the interest rates will keep going down, because I don't think that will happen. They will come down eventually, but it should be a slow process, not as fast as it was when they went up. So with that word of caution, the topic for today was how can people actually generate wealth in real estate. Now, there are three basic techniques, or the three basic ways of people who do that. But before we go into that, we need to know what you need to have. So, as long as you have some stable income coming through, where you have some kind of pay slips, or if you're a business owner, then you have some uh, tax submitted with the ATO, and you have your tax returns with you for the last 1 or 2 years, that is a sign of stable income. That will ensure that you have some kind of borrowing capacity. You need to have a bit of savings as well, at least between 60, 70, $80,000 to start into property. And you need to have clear goals. You just can't jump into property because your friend did it, your neighbor did it, or someone you really like or you admire get into property investing. You just can't do because of those reasons. You have to understand that it's a long-term game. It will take time. It will require some sacrifices as well, and it requires proper planning. As long as you're covering all your bases, I think that is when property investing definitely is for you. And once you have figured that out, now the different options for getting into property investing. The most common and the most sought after, where you don't really have to do much. If you're a busy couple, then you buy an asset in a good growth location, which rents out easily, which has minimal kind of maintenance, which has good diverse economy, which has good demographics in that area, good schools, good universities, good hospitals, and you just hold on to that asset and you let the time do the talking. Because guess what? Every 8 to 12 years, property prices, on average, this is the average thing, but every 8 to 12 years, property prices double in Australia. They don't double at all the locations at the same time. Different states operate at different time frames, so they may double in the next 10 years, let's say over the next 10 years in Sydney, but may not double in some other city as well. I'm not saying that Sydney will double in 10 years, but I'm just giving an example over here. So buy and hold essentially suits someone who is busy, who doesn't have time to get involved into property investing on a day-to-day basis. They just want to buy some asset which sits in the background, because they themselves are busy with their daily job. They're working 8, 9, 10 hours a day, and this remaining time they're spending with their kids. So it's really difficult for them to spend any time on doing any active form of investing. So that is where buy and hold really comes into play for them. The growth happens in the background. The rent gets delivered in their bank account every week or every month, and then their mortgage is being taken care of by the repayments. So that is something that suits people who don't have time for to spend for property investing itself. So that's where buy and hold really works for those kind of people. The advantage is you don't have to spend that much time doing it. Once you've bought the asset, it kind of does the good work on its own, and you have to have a good property manager who manages your property, who collects the rent, who manages all the maintenance requests. You need to have a good property manager. As long as you have that and you have bought in a good location at a good price, your property rents out automatically, and you just have to sit onto it. The disadvantage is that you can't really create much equity, and you're relying on the movement. You're relying on the movement in prices. Once the market moves, that is when the prices will go up, right? So that is what it needs to happen. So Sorry, I'm back. So that is the perks of when you work from home. That is when you have kids around you as well. But I love that. That is what I love doing. But anyways, I'm back now. So the disadvantage or not so advantageous thing is that you have to wait for the market to move, and that's where you make the growth, right? So that is buy and hold strategy for you. You don't have to invest much time, but you have to wait for the market to move to make any capital gains, to make any wealth in property, right? Which you can still do if you buy in the right location, by the way, and that's what we do for most of our clients. Other thing is that if you want to be really active into it and you want to get like more cash flow, then you can target properties where there's an existing house and there's an option to build a secondary dwelling at the back or at the front. Let's say a granny flat or a couple of townhouses that can be added. So those options are already there, and there are a lot of these options in Adelaide market, in Melbourne market, even in New South Wales, Queensland. All the states have these kind of options. The good thing is that you can generate some instant cash flow and you can bump your cash flow up with this kind of scenario. The downside is that you will have to invest time. You will need to have the right builder on board. You need to buy the right asset which has enough frontage, so the due diligence actually increases when you buy the property. In buy and hold, you still have to do due diligence, but you don't have to worry about the frontage of the lot. When you're looking to buy a house where you can add some secondary dwelling onto it, that is where you have to look at the frontage, you have to look at the slopes, you have to look at the setbacks, what are the council regulations around how much land you have to leave if you have to build a granny flat. You have to consider all those factors, and you have to be actively involved in that project. If it's a granny flat, it will take like 3 to 6 months to be built, so you have to be actively involved, get the right builder in there. If you are looking to build a couple of townhouses, couple of extra dwellings, that will take probably more time of yours. So if you're a busy professional, uh, where you don't have time to do something like that, you're really busy in your life, probably that is not the best form of investing for you. That is where buy and hold will really work for you. But if you can spare, let's say, 4 to 6 hours every single week after having bought the property, where you can sit down with the builder, make sure that the plans get approved by the council or through the CDC, and then you can get the construction done on a particular property. You will probably need 6 to 8 hours on a weekly basis during the construction to project manage the whole thing. But once that is complete, you will have really good amount of cash flow coming through, and that is a recommended strategy for you if you can spend that much amount of time and if you have the expertise and interest as well. That was the second avenue that a lot of people do explore as well. Making it a bit more, taking it to the next level, is the subdivision. Now in subdivision, that is full-fledged active investing. And what I mean by that is, hey, good evening, Iskra. Thank you so much for joining. Yeah, looking forward to the discussion. So yeah, we are already pretty much into the discussion now. So the third type is subdivision, where it's the advanced form of adding a granny flat, because essentially what you're doing, you're not just adding one granny or a couple of dwellings, but you're doing proper subdivision, which means you're buying a big piece of land, or you're buying a land with a house on it. Now, for most people, what really works, especially for people who are making their household income is around $200,000, $300,000, $500,000, $600,000. For them, it really helps if they buy a property which already has a house on it instead of buying a vacant land. Because let's say they buy something now, but they don't have plan to subdivide until 3 years or 2 years, right? For whatever reason. In that case, they still have rental income coming through that house. And these options are very much available. The example I've shared just over here is for a property we bought for a client in Melbourne. And we plan to be managing the property for project management through the build phase as well. So the whole idea is that if you can invest that much amount of time and effort, then you probably subdivision is where you can make a lot of money. Now, in this particular deal, the client can knock this house down and build 4 townhouses or even 3 townhouses, which will be slightly bigger and will sell for a bit more. Or they can just retain this house and they can just add 2 units at the back and then rent them out separately. So there are different ways that they can make money, and they have options of doing it. But either you have to be a builder yourself, or you need to have really good connections with the builders and developers. You need to understand what are the council regulations in the areas that you are buying in, because council will get heavily involved in any subdivision deal. They don't get involved to that level for a granny flat, because granny flats are usually pretty straightforward to be added into a property. As long as you have a certain frontage, a certain depth of the lot, they can be added. But as soon as you get into subdivision, which is the one that I'm showing you right now as an example, you need to be either a builder or a developer yourself, or you need to have a connection with the right builders and the right developers, which essentially we do for our clients, right? Also, you need to have the time and expertise to spend to talk to the town planners, making sure that you get the drawings done within time, get those drawings submitted to the council. You need to pick the right town planner as well who knows the council requirements, and they can do the drawings according to what the council needs so that everything works in a sync. And once that all of that happens, you go through the entire process where yes, in this deal I can share you the client will probably make anywhere between $600 to $800,000 once the project is complete. The total cost of project, including the build, including the development cost, including the purchase of this house as well, is probably around 2.6 $2.8 million. But once they sell, their net profit after taking away all the expenses is probably around $600,000 $700,000, which is huge. And it will really work well for them. They can make that money in the next 2 years. But for them to be able to make that money, they need to be really experienced in what they're doing. And they need to have a high risk buffer as well. Because if the development suddenly means that the development cost, what we have actually estimated is around $300,000 for this lot. If suddenly once we are doing excavation, if there's a rock at the bottom, suddenly your excavation cost bumps up by $50,000 up to like $100,000. And if that's the case, your development cost really goes up. So you need to be well prepared for that. You need to have the cash reserves in place. That's why subdivision is not for everyone. So please, my sincere advice, if you are not experienced into something like this, don't just jump into it because it can help you make $600,000 $800,000 or $1 million $2 million. Yes, it will make you money, but it comes with its own hassles and its own pain points. That is where you need to seek the right professional guidance. Otherwise you can lose more money instead of making money in real estate. So that was the third one. And then the next one, which is really getting popular now, is the co-living and rooming houses, or Airbnb or booking.com. All these kind of they all fall into one category, one big category, but they have slight differences from one another. Co-living, as the picture over here shows, essentially it's like a house which may have 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10 bedrooms. Each bedroom has its own basic amenities within the bedroom, and each room is rented out separately. So the house has one big kitchen, it has 1 or 2 living areas which get shared by everyone. But essentially each room itself is a small house within itself. It has its own basic amenities, its own privacy, and every room is rented out to different tenants. So you may have one house, but if it has 6 rooms, you will have 6 different tenants. The biggest advantage is your cash flow goes out of the roof. You're making a lot more money here. Assume having a co-living property worth $1.3 $1.4 million, including the land cost and the bill cost. And if you are able to rent out those 6 rooms at $300 a week or $350 a week, you are generating $2,000 every single week out of it, which is a good cash flow. The downside is you need to find places where this co-living will really succeed and it will be a long-lasting option. For instance, places where there are a lot of good universities, good schools, good hospitals, where a lot of people are working, like in city, in big CBDs. That is probably where the area is. That's probably where the demand is for these kind of livings. And that is where you have to identify the right location where you can actually buy something which has a co-living title on it, or which has a room, which has an approved rooming house on it. The other thing is you need to make sure that there will be a long-term demand for this kind of an asset. It may be renting out well today, but in 5 years' time, you need to make sure that in 5 years' time, 10 years' time, it will still rent out and still give you that $2,000, $3,000 a week. So that is very important, and that is where things can become a bit risky, because if you are not able to rent out, let's say 2 out of 6 rooms, your cash flow suddenly goes down, and the purpose why you entered into this space becomes irrelevant. Other important thing is the management fee. If you engage a property manager, which I highly recommend, then a property manager who manages your buy and hold property or any other kind of property in residential space versus a property manager who will manage this kind of property, co-living or an Airbnb or a rooming house, will essentially charge you a lot of money. So they can charge you anywhere from like 14% in terms of property management up to like 20% as well. That's what I've heard. So a normal property manager for a residential property, a standard residential, would only charge you 5 to 7% or 5 to 8%. In rooming houses, you have to make sure that they rent out consistently. Plus, the outgoing cost for property management is quite high as well. Also, the insurance cost, they are also higher as compared to a normal residential property. So yes, they come with a lot of cash flow, but a lot of cash flow goes out of your pocket as well. So you need to be careful with that. So that's all about all these a little bit that we touched upon all these four different avenues as to where you can make money. So depending on your situation, your risk appetite, your risk buffers, you can probably see what would really work for you. Now, this is the deal of the week, my favorite segment. This is the deal that we have just settled yesterday. And the client wanted to buy this property. This is their second purchase. And they wanted to buy something which, in the next 3 to 4 years, gives them enough growth, enough price appreciation that they can use that appreciation and buy another asset, because ultimately they want to keep building a property portfolio. And their main requirement was they don't want to compromise their lifestyle. So they don't want to change any of the things they're doing right now. They are doing their holidays as well. Their kids are going to a private school. They don't want to compromise on any of that, but they still want to invest in property, which keeps growing in value and helps them generate wealth in a safe manner. So this is a buy and hold strategy. This is the first scenario that we discussed, and this property fits into that one. Very quickly, so we bought it for $627,000. Once we had the building and pest done, we negotiated for the $3.5 grand on the property. So essentially, it's like $623,000 property for them, and it was built like 13, 14 years ago. And this will be renting for $580 to $600 a week easily in today's market. So that's close to like 4.8, 4.9% of rental yield, which is really good in the current market. So guys, this is all from my side today. If you have any questions, feel free to share them over here and bring them on. If you're watching the recording, please share your questions in the comments, whether you're watching on YouTube or LinkedIn or on Facebook. I would love to get your questions and I would answer them myself. And until next week, take care and stay safe.